Now that we have discussed the context of climate change, let's dive into how it connects with the Sustainable Development Goals or SDGs and why these two are interconnected. One, like you cannot fight climate change without working for the SDGs. So, the SDGs or the Sustainable Development Goals were adopted by all the United Nations member states in 2015 as a shared blueprint for peace, prosperity, and having a healthy planet by 2030. Within this framework, there are 17 SDGs, 17 goals that has been identified, covering a wide range of issues, starting from poverty, health, education, up to climate action, gender equality, and so on. The SDGs recognize that development must balance social well being, economic growth, and environmental protection, which are the three pillars of sustainability. Unlike other development models, the SDGs acknowledge that all of these goals are interconnected with one another. And if you want to solve a problem or if you want to solve one of these challenges, then you definitely have to solve all the others as well, or at least take them into considerations. Traditionally, development has solely focused on economic development or economic growth, which was always measured by GDP, the gross domestic product. This usually tracks the total values of goods and services produced by a country. However, as it has been experienced that economic development often overlooks the knock-on effects that it has on the local environment and the local communities. And usually these effects are quite negative. So GDP does not account for quality of life. It is not exactly the best indicator to track development or to track progress, because GDP can rise even when environmental degradation increases or inequality worsens. So in order to account for all these components within the system, um, it was followed by the concept of human development. So human development focused more on how to enhance individual freedom, how to enhance the capacity to choose, to have access to basic rights, to basic standard of living, education, health. However, even from this framework, the whole environmental component was still missing. So, to address all the components within the system, the SDGs offer a broader, more holistic framework for development, and it looks beyond the economic numbers, specifically in terms of GDP, to include more concepts of social justice, environmental stewardship, and inclusive prosperity. So, climate change and sustainable development are deeply interconnected. Sustainable development, as by definition, is meeting today's need without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet theirs tomorrow. So, climate change actually threatens every part of that goal. So, it impacts the food systems, it impacts health, education, economies, and even peace and security. So, that's why climate action as a goal within the SDGs framework is quite important. SDG 13 calls on all countries to take urgent actions to combat climate change and its impacts. So, if we want to put SDG 13 at the center and see how it links to all the other different goals that there are, let's take, for example, how climate change affects agricultural productivity. Could be through various natural disasters such as drought, floods, and unpredictable weather. It directly affects food production. And food production, if the food production is disrupted, of course, it's going to have an impact on the food security. So, if we focus on climate adaptation in farming practices, then we can achieve SDG 2, or we can achieve some of the targets of SDG 2. Similarly, water scarcity, for example, is worsened by climate change. As the sea levels are rising, salinization or salinity intrusion is increasing, and this is having a huge impact on our freshwater resources or our freshwater supplies. So, if we can combat the sea level rise, at least by combating or at least by reducing our carbon emissions, then it will also have a positive contribution towards SDG 6, clean water and sanitation. If we think about SDG 14 and SDG 15, that is life below water and life on land, ocean warming, acidification, expansion of oceans, land degradation, all are direct results of climate change. And this is absolutely threatening biodiversity and ecosystems that are vital for human survival and vital for the services that we receive from these ecosystems. So once again, if we work for SDG 13, then we are automatically working for SDG 14 and 15 as well. So it's actually pretty difficult to find a single SDG that is not connected to climate change. And this represents how addressing climate change isn't an isolated goal, but it's a foundational requirement for achieving all the SDGs. By prioritizing adaptation, mitigation, and resilience, specifically for vulnerable communities, we are not only protecting the environment, but we also want to work towards human dignity, equity, and prosperity. So throughout this course, we'll continue exploring these connections, understanding that building a sustainable and just future depends on recognizing how climate, society, and development are intricately linked with one another.